This announcement is to advise all attendees that tonight's board meeting is being recorded. Persons wishing to address the board on any agenda or non-agenda item must fill out a speaker card and email it to Velma Beck, which is VBECK at sylvan.k12.ca.us. That's vbeck at sylvan.k12.ca.us, and Velma will make us aware if there's anybody that would like to address the board. If you would like to address the board on an agendized item, we'll wait till that time. If it's on a non-agendized item, we will do it at the time of public input. We'd like to report out of closed session. The direction was given to staff on all matters. And at this time, I'm looking for a board member to make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mrs. Miyakawa and a second by Mrs. Lindsay. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any of the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, so now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would all like to rise and face your front yard where your flag is waving, we will begin. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for participating in our Pledge of Allegiance. We'd ask all people who are watching the board meeting if you could keep your connection on mute. And when you're asked to address the board, you can just press the space bar to address the board. At this time, we'll move to item 8A, written communications. Mrs. Hendricks.
Thank you, President Raw. So the board, you do not have this in front of you this evening, but you will have it at your doorstep within the next day or two. And it is your next board policy binder. We will have your first reading, your first reading on May 12th, and then you will come back on June 2nd with your second reading and adoption at the same meeting. And I know that you just really need some really great reading being at the stay at home. So we just thought this was the perfect time to give you your next binder.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hendricks. You're gonna work us. Good, at this time, we'll move to item 8B, which is public participation. Mrs. Beck, is there anybody that has sent in any type of communication? Okay, she's shaking her head no. So at this time, we will move to item 9A, which is our superintendent's update on COVID-19. And anything else she wants to talk about in her update?
I do, thank you. I want to talk about the superior job that our essential workers are doing in the district, and that's essential workers across the board. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about our teachers and classified as we go to the point of recognizing them as with a resolution. But I just wanted to say that, and I want to bring to light, and I'm sure you already know this, but the exceptional job that Ed Services is doing in leading this charge. And I'm just so proud of the team and everything that they're doing. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hendricks. We'll move on to item 9B, which is a 2019-2020 governance goals update. Deborah, if you'd like to just hit your space bar or unmute.
Muted now. And so the governance goals are in front of you. They are your 5 governance goals. 3 were aligned to my evaluation. But as you can see with the updates, there were several that we were unable to give you any updated data due to the school closures. So does any board member have a question?
Seeing none, at this time, we'll go on to 9C, which is our safety and facilities update.
Does the board have any questions for staff?
I just have one, and that is that just confirming next Tuesday morning, will we be given a link to join the USTAC meeting, or how will that go about, Lizette? Do you know, or Deborah?
Yes. Josh has been doing some scheduling phone conferencing where you can dial in. So I'll make sure that that information gets to you.
Okay. All right, very good. So just make sure that Mrs. Miyakawa and I both get that information. So we'll do our best to attend that. On item 10A, it's our resolution 2019-2020. It's our 25th resolution. It's the week of the teacher. And Mrs. Hendricks.
Yes, thank you. So usually I have some teacher faces in the audience, so I'm just going to talk as if we have all of our teachers watching right now. And I want to thank them. First of all, I want to tell them that we always talk about Sylvan teachers being number one, but they truly are number one. Their willingness, eagerness to do whatever it takes right now in these uncharted waters, even for some, I mean, the high level of learning they've taken on because of platforms that they haven't used in the past that they're having to use now. And so I really want to applaud them. I haven't seen a harder working group of people. I thank them personally. And I also know that even though they are on the new horizons, that there's just something that came to me today that just wait and see the places they'll go, because they're amazing people. So thank you. And I want to stand and give you a standing ovation.
Very good. Thank you so much. Very appreciative. I know that for a lot of teachers, this is a new and innovative time for them. None of them ever thought that they were going to go into elementary education and become distance educators. And, but I'm so impressed. I have talked to some teachers in our district. I have my own two daughters. One's an 8th grade teacher, one's a 1st grade teacher. Every week, putting out video after video after video, and then answering, one daughter answering up to 30 emails, and another having over 100 emails, who's the 8th grade teacher. So we know it's a lot of work and a lot of effort, and it's much appreciated. And thank you for learning this new way of learning. And we're very grateful to you for your dedication in doing that. Resolution number 2019-2020, number 26, is our classified school employees, who are very important because we know those kids are getting fed and being well taken care of. Mrs. Hendricks.
Okay, do you need to vote on?
Oh, I apologize. I just went right by it. So I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution 2019-2020, week of the teacher.
I will make such a motion.
A motion by Mr. Collins. A second by Mrs. Miyakawa. All those in favor state aye.
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 Any the contrary? Hearing none. The motion carries. You know, if it's easier for you to just raise your hand on the aye, I know that that means an aye or a thumb up or a thumb down. But I did get all of you on that. And so the resolution carries and is adopted. 10B is our second resolution. It's number 26. It's for classified school employees.
Yes, so I wanted to talk a little bit about our classified school employees, especially our essential workers that are out there right now. They're our frontline people. In fact, I think of them as Sylvan's first responders. And I know that we have many medical professionals working tirelessly in really incredible conditions in hospitals and such. But I think our frontline people are unsung heroes because they're out there delivering the food, they're on the buses, they are close proximity with a lot of people every single day. And they're out there whether it's rain or shine. And I have to tell you, they're out there with the biggest hearts. I mean, they are so much in the spirit of giving, and our parents and kids love rolling up, and the people that are right next to them are our site administrators. Executive leadership is deployed for heavy days, but honestly, it's been the site administrators and our food service out there every single day. And our M&O that show up, everybody that we call on as essential workers are there. So I just want to thank them very much for everything that they do. And I want to give them a standing tip.
Very good. Thank you. Very much appreciated. I'm looking for a board member to make the motion for this resolution.
So moved.
So moved. Oh,
A
second.
motion by Mrs. Lindsay and a second by Mrs. Harvey. All those in favor state aye.
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 Any to the contrary? Hearing none, the resolution carries and is adopted. Thank you. Item 10C on our agenda tonight is approval of the 2018-2019 annual Measure A performance audit and financial report for our Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. Lizette, do you have any information that you would like to share on the Bond Oversight Committee?
And this is an annual audit process, an item that's brought to you for your approval, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, seeing none, looking for a motion to approve the audit.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Lindsay and a second.
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 Second by Mrs. Harvey. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any to the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 10C is adopted. 10D is the approval of change order number 6 with Boyer Construction Company for USTAC Middle School Modernization Project. Lizette, any items you wanna review this, and then I'll ask board members if they have questions.
So yes, this is change order number 6, and you have the breakout of the various components of it. A few of them, one of them being the $20,000 change. That's one of the biggest, but you can see there's a variety of items there that we have listed that make up the overall total change order, representing $4,808.70. And that is coming from contingency funds. And after that, we have $159,540 remaining in our contingency fund and overall value engineering pot of money that we have designated for the USTAC modernization project. Is there any questions?
All right, so looking for board member questions on this, Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes, I believe at the last board meeting, we asked about the drainage situation there. Were you able to resolve that?
The drainage in relation to,
Maybe she's talking about the roof drains. Remember how we did the pipes outside of them? The pictures went around, and we, Mia Cow and I said, yeah, the pictures looked fine. And then they're gonna move forward with those. They're it's like an overflow for the roof.
yes.
Referring
Yes.
to Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we received a cost on that from Boyer, and it was about just a little over $9,000, close to $10,000 to do that work because there's so many gutters. So we discussed that this morning, and we'll be looking at having our staff being able to do that to save some money from not have to utilize that, almost $10,000 on that. Because it is a mock-up that was done by Sean, our director, and it's, it's relatively simple. It's just more time consuming than anything. So we'll be looking at the feasibility of us doing that, the kind of time that would take, as opposed to having Boyer do it.
Okay, and is my question is that on all the buildings, or was it just a multipurpose?
All the buildings.
All the buildings, okay. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
The purpose of that, Mrs. Lindsay, was we had backup on the roof for many years because the drains filled with leaves. They didn't get cleaned out, weren't maintained on a regular basis. And this would be like an overflow. So it would draw the attention of somebody down below saying, why is there water coming out of the side of the building? That would be say, hey, because we haven't been cleaning the drains up on top.
Oh, okay, I understand.
That's the
Okay.
purpose of it. It's like a warning system.
Oh,
Right.
I would. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Right. All right. So for item 10D, looking for a motion to approve the change order.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lindsay and a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Harvey. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 10E is the approval of the expenditure of construction funds. Any board members have any questions regarding construction fund expenditures? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve construction fund expenditures.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mrs. Miyakawa. All those in favor state aye.
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 Any to the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 10F is the approval of the E-rate RFP for cabling upgrades. And at the same time, if you could review the next item with it, which is the approval of the E-rate for the wireless upgrades, which is 10G. So one is for cabling, one is for wireless. And if you want to talk about that, Lizette, and explain it to the board.
Yes, so both of these projects are projects that we have gone through a process, and this was the next step in the process after advertising, going through and selecting the proposed bidder for that through that process. And this would allow us to go to the next step and submit these proposals and these as a selected bidders to apply for E-rate funding. We apply for it, and you see the approximate cost estimate of 80% cost covered by E-rate of $180,000 and 20% approximately by the district, $45,000. And with your approval, we would put this in line for our E-rate in our E-rate funding application, and we await a decision. And once we receive a decision on funding, at that point, we can decide to accept that, and if we have the ability to move forward with those projects, either one, both of the projects.
Very good. So just a clarification to all board members, this is more of a procedural issue where we're accepting the proposals. It doesn't mean we're actually doing the work. Our next steps would be applying for the E-rate funds. If we then get the funds, then it would come back again to us, and we would have to come up with the 20% matching funds if we decided to move forward. And at that time, we would grant the moving forward. So this is more of a procedural thing so that we can apply for the E-rate funds. All right, Mrs. Lindsay, question?
Yes, Mr. Raw, you may be able to clarify for me or Lizette. When the presentations were made about the E-rate from the gentleman who was putting all the computer programs together and all the technology, we were told that we might be able to get some of the E-rate money that we already had applied for. Did we get that, or?
So that's what this represents. These projects represent some of those technology needs that were discussed, and an anticipation of being able to apply for those projects with E-rate funds. And so these are the two projects, the cabling and the wireless upgrades. And if you see the what's covered by E-rate, about, like I said, about 80% of this total cost would be covered by E-rate.
No, what I'm asking you is, he told us there was we had already qualified for E-rate funds and that we might be getting those even though we didn't get them at that time. Did we lose that funding before?
So we have a specified amount that's allotted to us, and that's what part of what he discussed. But you still have to go through an application process so that they can review the proposals and everything you're submitting, and they have to approve that and then issue you a decision letter.
Okay. I guess I was assuming we had already been approved at some point and that then they were going to just carry through with that approval.
They couldn't because we didn't go with yeah.
Right.
No.
No, it's the amount of funds that we talked about. Like I said, they're designated for our district, but you
Right.
still have to go through an application process every year because in order to even submit anything for E-rate, you have to go through an RFP process to advertise, solicit updated bids. So it's part of the requirement.
I was confused about the last year's. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion for item 10F, approval of E-rate RFP 1920-01 cabling upgrades. We have
I'll
a
make a motion to approve.
Kawa and a second by Mr. Collins. All those in favor state aye.
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 Any to the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 10G is the approval of the E-rate RFP 1920 for wireless upgrades. Looking for a board motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second.
Second.
Put your finger up if you want. Mrs. Lindsay made the second. All those in favor state aye.
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 Any to the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. I'm now going to scroll through each board member. We're on consent agenda, starting with Mr. Collins. Are there any items you have questions on or would like to pull for a separate vote, Mr. Collins?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Harvey, are there any items that you would like to pull for a separate vote or ask for questions on?
No, not at this time.
Very good. Mrs. Lindsay, are there any items that you'd like to pull for a separate vote or have questions on?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Miyakawa, are there any items you'd like to pull or have questions on?
Yes, please. Questions on F and G.
F and G. So we're going to do questions on F and G, starting with 11F, which is approval of revised ASB student store manager job description. Mrs. Miyakawa.
Thank you. I have most of my questions answered on this prior to the meeting. I just want to clarify on our district packet, it says that the salaries would be $67,000 annually. The NYP we got at our budget study said $83,000. Can you clarify the differential there?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that for you. So the $67,000 is salary only, and this job description is tied to that salary range. But when you go ahead and also add in the benefits, you come at the just over $80,000 for the 3 positions. They are 4 hours or more, so they are offered benefits. And so that's factored into the total cost. That's why the NYP is slightly different than what's listed in the job description.
Okay, thank you. That was my second question.
I'm sorry. Wait 1 second. Do you mind turning yours up? Okay.
My other was going to ask what the time commitment was there. Is this a 4 hours or more? I mean, this is kind of one of those ebb and flows because if they're taking over the ASB, that's going to be, there'll be, jogathons or, whatever they're taking funding in. So how is that determined, their hourly?
So currently right now there are 2 5 hours and 1 4 hour. It's staff's recommendation, and this amount is calculated on 3 5 hour positions and working at some fluidity with their schedule to be able to have an early start, a late start, but still do some of the nutrition in the middle of the day. And as we look at next year, having another option and another line, another space that kids could go to get food outside of that, the NPR and cafeteria space would be optimal. And so that's how those amounts are calculated that you see are based on 5 hour days.
Okay, very, very good. So thank you for bringing that up, Mrs. Miyakawa. I was going to bring the same item up. I have some concerns about this, but I have talked a little bit to Dee Dee and Deborah about it, and they're starting to sway me in their direction. But what all the board members should know is that the wages used to be paid out of the revenues of Student Store. And so, you know, it would be run like a regular business where you have revenues coming in, you have your expenses, and then you'll have a net income at the end. And then that can be used for ASB purposes. Well, the law they've been made aware of under the law that salaries cannot be paid out of the revenues, that they must be paid by district staff. And when I heard that, I said, well, this no longer makes sense to have these positions. It would be better for us to just take that $60,000 or $70,000 and write a check to each one of the school sites and give them that money. It's probably more than they would make anyway. And then no one would have to do any work for it. And we wouldn't have to horse with all of this stuff. So they said there's something about, well, if we would have known this earlier, that, you know, these are people's jobs, we can't lay them off. But the reason I'm bringing it up, and if Dee Dee or Deborah want to add to it, fine. I really think now that this new law is made aware to us, I really think we had to consider whether we should even continue with these positions. It just financially doesn't make any sense whatsoever to do this. So I know we're trying to give other duties from the school sites to this person. I just think we're trying to limp it along, but I think you're going to be able to sway me this year to keep them. But after that, I would be hard pressed to understand a good reason to keep this. But if you want to make your argument, now would be the time, Dee Dee or Deborah, of why we should keep this position with the new knowledge of the new law and rule.
So George, when you talk about this year, are you talking about 1920? Or are you talking about the 2020 upcoming 2021?
The upcoming, because Dee Dee had mentioned, really the thing that swung the pendulum for me was Dee Dee mentioned that we have missed the notification deadline for these 3 people. And so it might be difficult for us to lay them off. Plus, there's also the inventory that's currently in the store. Do we clearly make this our last year and say, okay, we need to purge all the inventory. We need to sell off all the inventory and close down the school site over the 2021 year, the new year coming up, you know, possibly, and modify the, you know, the job description to do what Dee Dee talked about taking some ASB things. But from a financial standpoint, under the new law, it's hard for me to understand why this is a viable position anymore. But I'm willing to hear the arguments and be swayed, because Dee Dee, quite frankly, swayed me. Because right at the beginning, I said, let's get rid of this. You know, it makes no sense. So,
Well, I think the board,
Dee Dee can be.
the board brings up good questions, and so staff is working on this information and getting more information to you. But right now, you're correct. Where we are where we are under the circumstances. And so, but staff is looking at that, and we'll have more conversation with the board.
Can I
Do
say
you want to add
something?
anything, Dee Dee, or not? Are you good? You're muted. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry. We're trying to turn our volumes up and down.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything to add. I think you did a great job summarizing for me, and Deborah added that. So if there's other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Mrs. Lindsay, did you want to?
Mr. Raw, I agree with you wholeheartedly in that it might be in with the upcoming situation with the, you know, our budget and the amount of money that we're getting to come in, that this might be a viable option to save money. But I do want to remind you that some of my favorite memories of my middle school and high school years was the hanging out at the snack place and visiting with my friends and eating this. I can still remember the things I ate. So I don't want to take it away. If we do take it away, I want it to be something that would be at the top of the list to come back, you know, as we have done in the past before.
Well, I think what Dee Dee made in her recommendation has a lot of valid points is that we do need to decide at a point as a board whether we're going to keep it. So we could possibly use a year-long phase-out process. It gives ample notice to the employees. It allows
Right.
us to purge all the inventory and cash it all out. Just work out a lot of details rather than just doing it instantaneously.
Exactly.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mrs. Miyakawa.
Yeah, one follow-up on that. Before we make a decision about using this year to phase it out, could we gather data this year on, what kind of money it's making for the students, where that money is being used, when, all the data that would go into, if there's times of the year that it's more profitable than others. When that law changed, I believe in the Obama administration with healthier snacks, I think a lot of their lucrative money-making items kind of, went out the window. And so I wonder if that's part of why it might not be making as much money anymore. But just some hard data that we can look at to see if this is profitable, what programs it's being used for, that kind of thing. And Cindy's right. Anytime you ask kids what their favorite parts of school are, it's always PE and food. So you have to consider that. The other thing, though, it was mentioned that there are already teachers getting stipends to help with ASB. Is that stipend thing still in play, or would this position take over that responsibility and therefore cut
So
out?
there's the certificated stipends are part of the contract and part of the list, and the activities director is one of those. I appreciate your comments very much about the student store. We're hearing similar things. In fact, Mike Maskey started as a student at Somerset working in the student store and doing that work. So there is a long history that I think is very proud in Sylvan. I appreciate the board's consideration. There have been many, many, many months of meetings trying to come to a good solution and a plan moving forward. And unfortunately, some of the budget things make the timing of this hard for the board, and I understand that. But I appreciate the consideration of looking at this at 2021, providing the exact data, Ms. Miyakawa, that you're discussing. One of the reasons it became less and less profitable is, as benefits and salaries increase, and that was getting paid out of those revenue. I promise you that the student store managers are incredibly savvy business women. They are really good at what they do. They're incredibly passionate about serving those kids and supporting the site. I've had a couple of meetings with them and will continue to do that with CSEA. Also, the ASB piece of this is kind of an added portion, looking at how else we can kind of stretch this position to also solve some other things that are going on. But we can bring some numbers back and closely monitor revenues and costs and look at that moving forward. And as I said in the statement, really looking at the viability of this exact position long-term. I do want to amend one thing. Of course, there are always some things that you can do in emergency situations that the board can consider. And if we decide to do that, we can. But I'm bringing this forward for your approval, knowing that it's been many months of work to try to get it to where it is right now. But I also understand the board's questions and concerns.
Great, thank you, Dee Dee. Let's go to Miyakawa for 11G.
Okay, my question on this is also the fund differential. There's 3 different positions that we are contracting for. All of them have different hourly rates. If that could be explained, please.
Okay, I'm thinking that I would answer that. They are for speech position. So there's 2 different job classifications in these 3 contracts. One's for an SLPA, so a speech language pathology assistant, and that's the lower figure. And then the other 2 are speech and language pathologists. And the discrepancy is the experience level that the staff have and the pay rate they're offered by the agency. Because just like we have steps on our salary schedule, they have that as well based on their experience.
I figured that's probably what it was. I wanted to confirm. My follow-up question to that, and I don't know if you have an answer to this, but we this is a chronic problem for districts across contracting and getting SLPs. Is that because entities like this one, they're preferring coming out of college to sign up and work with entities like this one because they get paid better? Is that why we're having a hard time recruiting, or is it just this black hole that nobody's going into this major?
I think it's maybe a combination. I don't have the exact answer for you. Agencies offer flexibility. Some people like to move district to district, state to state. And so an agency allows them to be kind of mobile. The major's a tough one. So people that go into this major, are in it 4 or 5 years to get out with their licensing. And so it's just been a chronic issue. One great thing about this company and another one that we've been able to use is they give us that 30-day out clause. So while we continually try to recruit for the positions, whenever we are able to hire someone, we can give them 30 days and get released from the contract. And so that's another benefit as well.
Do we have any colleges, universities close to us that has the program that we can, I know sometimes these programs limit how many people are even accepted. What kind of availability do we even have locally to tap into some local people?
Well, and Dee Dee can chime in if I'm missing one, but UOP is one that's local. And the other one I know of is Chico State, which we've reached out to as well in the past. Last year, we went to UOP and did some recruiting during October, kind of when their semesters end. And I don't know if there's anywhere else that you know of, Dee Dee.
Yeah, and we also have tapped into Delta College. They have a really large speech program, which are people who are preparing to go into the final program, but some of them actually could come out as the SLPAs, the aides. And so we actually sent program specialists there last year to recruit and kind of pass out our information to just get them aware of us. We are also we're receiving more and more information from some of the universities holding virtual job fairs, which has been going on anyway, but even ones who typically have in-person one, like the one I was planning on going to in Utah that sadly was canceled, that, we'll be able to look at some of those. So I actually have set up a profile for us so that we can engage virtually in some of this work. But even with that, the SLP piece is very, very hard to hire. And that's true for everybody.
And are we competitive in our pay rate? Do you know, as far as, we're competing like we are for every position, right? Are we fairly competitive in what we're offering, that people aren't swiping, wooing them away?
Well, our SLPs are paid that additional stipend on top of or additional salary amount. I have been at job fairs and seen very large signing bonuses. I've seen all kinds of things out there. And I think we do try to be very competitive. That's one of the conversations we had earlier in the budget study session, is we do try to remain competitive so we can recruit and then retain. We hired in 1 year 2 people from one university, and they, and so we try to get them here, and then we really want to keep them happy so that they will stay with us. But also, as Dawn alluded to, even with the agencies, one of the things you're seeing is that agencies get between school districts and programs and hire people out. They sort of go in and headhunt people and then turn around and say, now we have one for you at this higher cost. It's really all HR departments and school districts, special ed departments are, kind of commiserating over some of that. But it's, again, and you spoke to this also, there's just a lower number of people even going into the programs, partially because the programs keep it that way. And it is a difficult program to get to. So we certainly appreciate the ones we have, and we want them to stay, and then we'll continue to actively recruit. And as Dawn said, we're very happy that this company in particular does offer us that 30-day out. So when we're able to recruit our own, we can then release this piece and be able to save some money.
Okay, Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes, a couple of questions. One, Dee Dee, what would be the situation if a teacher that currently has a credential in say, English or speech or something, what would be the steps they would have to take to go and get this pathology degree? Do you have any idea?
It's a separate program. That is an excellent question. And
I was
they have
thinking
their
we might
own
get them.
licensing. Am I on mute? No. Sorry. They have their own licensing. That's a great question. Dawn maybe could even speak to that better than I can, but it would be a standalone program. It's a special license that they have to earn. It's not like a credentialed teacher where you can have a credential and add a little piece and kind of do this. It's a separate program that's quite
So is it
rigorous.
5 years long?
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry.
is it 5 years long?
It can be done in 4 years. That's pretty intense from what I've heard. But it can be done in 4.
Even with having a credential in language or speech or in English or?
That piece I would concur with, from what I understand with Dee Dee, that it's not the same as adding like an authorization or another, like a mild mod to a mod severe credential. It's very specific. In
Hey,
terms
Mrs. Lindsay, I'd be happy to, I could reach out to a program and ask that specific question and get that answer back to you.
I just was thinking that when my daughter was in Pepperdine, her sophomore year, they reached out to her because she was a German major. Lufthansa reached out to her at the beginning of her sophomore year to recruit her to work for them. So what these big companies are doing, they're not waiting until they're seniors. They're getting them when they're freshmen or sophomores. And so my thought was if we could get some of the English or speech majors and encourage them to work on that license at the same time that they're getting the credential, or even, because I can see where this is a kind of a iffy, scary kind of position that you could be let go real easily, and it's not a tenured position, correct?
it is.
It is.
Oh, it is. It
Yeah.
is a short tenured. So if we could encourage that, maybe that would be a way of going. But I think we're going to always going to be on the end of the stick because we don't get the money that some of these bigger districts that are getting, the percentage of money on their
Okay.
and so therefore the funding is going to always keep us kind of, I don't know, maybe we should look at maybe a possible using some of their employees part-time. Do you know what I mean? Because we may not ever be able to really have enough of our own to be able to afford full price. I don't know whether they ever have, part-time work at some of these other school districts, but maybe they have part-time teachers that they would share with us.
Okay. Thank you all for your participation on this. Looking
Mr. Raw.
at other questions.
Mr. Raw, I had a
Yes,
question
Mrs.
or
Harvey,
a comment.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Cal State Northridge has a pretty active program as well, and I know a couple of juniors there. So if you want
Yeah.
to talk,
Right. I think the answer is I have a very close friend of mine in Utah where you were going, Dee Dee. They have several programs there. I think what we have to do is recruit and either that or get them in under interns. So
Recruit early.
or another, someone's just beating us to the punch on it.
Mhm.
So looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Mrs. Miyakawa made the motion and a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Collins. All those in favor state aye.
I
Aye.
Any the contrary? Hearing none, the motion carries. Mrs. Hendricks, you have a superintendent's report for us?
I do. You may know this information, but I just learned about it myself this morning that Jim Enochs passed away. Yeah, and so I don't know anything in the way of details right now, but yeah, he had been dealing with, I think, Parkinson's for several years, and so he did pass. And the board had asked for a board presentation update on the Sylvan, also Somerset STEAM update, and wanting to know if the board would still want staff to prepare that for a May presentation.
I would like to, because I would, my goal is to see STEAM in every one of our schools. So yeah, I would really like to keep moving forward on that myself.
So possibly I would be interested in it if we could do it similar to the way we did our budget study session, where the staff sent out a week ahead of time the PowerPoint slides, all the background information, so that we can read it and digest it prior to. We could send questions back, you could answer them, and then we could get a summary presentation. Because there's going to be a lot of statistics the board is looking for in that. Like, how are we doing? I mean, we all know what STEAM is, but I think we're looking as, have we made gains? And is STEAM directly responsible for those gains and so forth? I'm interested in that aspect of it.
Okay,
Ms. Ross?
we will prepare, but also just, there will be data we will not have at our disposal because of the COVID-19. And unfortunately, this was a very critical year for that. So, but we will absolutely bring and put together whatever we have.
Okay. Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes, I would like to know I know we only had a few months, but could you tell us the effect on the transition from the elementary to the middle school, and how that, I know that they're kind of kept all together. It's almost like the AT&G program. So I wanted to know, are they, as they get to the 7th and 8th grade, will they still be all kept together, or will they be interacting with the entire school, which certainly makes a difference in the situation. So that's something that I'm interested in.
Okay, are there items? Yes, Mr. Collins.
So, so just a question about that STEAM presentation. Is the point of the presentation to check in and see how STEAM is going right now at Sylvan, or is it an analysis of the feasibility of expanding STEAM into all our other elementary schools? And if it's the latter, then is May really the best time for that kind of presentation with everything going on? So that maybe if that is what we're looking at, that can be postponed until the fall.
No, I think for me, it's just what you said, the first thing, Mr. Collins.
Just so this is
Just a report.
This is just a brief, like, here's how things are going at
Sorry,
Sylvan STEAM.
I prefaced it with, I would like to see it and everything. So that wasn't fair. I'm sorry. Shouldn't have said that.
Okay.
This was Somerset STEAM though, wasn't it, Ms. Hendricks? Not Sylvan.
It's both Sylvan and Somerset.
Well, come up with a proposal, Mrs. Hendricks. We'll talk about it and see how we could agendize it for a future meeting. Are there other items board members want to add to future agendas? Okay, our next board meeting is going to be on May 12th. And I hope all of you stay safe out there, do good things for the world. Yes, Mrs. Lindsay.
Okay, since we do not have board comments anymore,
We do not.
I do have a comment. I wanted to reach out and let staff know that greatly appreciate all the videos that they're putting out there on Facebook to the children, staff, teachers, and classified, and really picking up the morale of the children and the parents. The videos are fantastic, and Deborah, if you could get back with those administrators and let them know at those sites how much the community's loving them. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we will adjourn our meeting. And it is currently 7:49. Thank you all for joining us, and you have a nice evening.
I think
Good
that's
job.
a record,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Raw.
Good
I think
job.
that's a record.
Oh, okay, very good.
But
Good night,
because,
Mr. Ross.
because they're
Good
all
night.
remote, you're going to get an asterisk next to your name in the Hall of Fame there. Though, so.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.